Welcome back to today's Deep Dive, the flagship intelligence podcast. We hope you got a chance to explore our financial intelligence series. Let's dive straight into this episode. You're listening to episode 28, proudly brought to you by Nextsight. Today's Thursday, August 14th, 2025, and this is your daily intelligence brief.
And we're looking at the daily intelligence report from Nextsight itself for yesterday, August 13th. It's quite a snapshot of the world right now.
It really is. And our mission here is to kind of unpack this for you, pull out the key insights, and figure out what it all actually means.
Definitely. And before we even get into the specific events, it's worth noting how Nextsight frames the reliability here. They flag every report, which is super helpful.
Right. This one has a moderate threat level.
Yeah.
So things are tense, geopolitical flashpoints are active, but no massive escalation indicated for the 13th.
And the Admiralty rating is A2. What that tells us is the sources are mostly reputable news agencies, official statements, think tanks. So solid sources, even if some info is secondhand.
And importantly, a confidence rating of 3. That means most things are backed up by at least 2 independent sources.
Which is key. They're also careful to point out when something, like social media sentiment, is more anecdotal. Gives you transparency on the trust behind each story.
Exactly. It means we're looking at a pretty well-vetted overview. So what's the big picture? The bottom line up front, or BLUF.
Well, August 13th was marked by high geopolitical tension, climate disasters hitting hard, and definite economic uncertainty.
We're seeing things like air travel chaos in Canada, these terrible wildfires across southern Europe.
The Gaza conflict intensifying again, plus debates over stablecoins heating up in Asia. A lot happening.
But here's the paradox, right? Despite all that, equity markets actually rallied.
Yeah, rallied pretty strongly on hopes of U.S. monetary easing. It's this strange disconnect, this world of contradictions we keep seeing. Real-world risk on one side, financial optimism on the other.
Okay, so let's start unpacking that, maybe beginning with those global disruptions where nature and human factors collide. The wildfires, for instance.
Right. The report leads with wildfire destruction outpacing response capacity in southern Europe. The numbers are stark: over 440,000 hectares burned by mid-August.
That's double the 10-year average, isn't it?
Double, yeah. We're seeing huge evacuations in Greece and Spain. Sadly, at least one firefighter fatality reported.
And there's that cost-benefit angle, too. The report mentions environmental groups estimating, investing €1 billion a year in prevention.
Could save almost 10 million hectares and slash firefighting costs by nearly €100 billion annually. It's a massive difference.
A huge potential saving just from proactive investment. Makes you wonder about priorities.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just Europe. Canada had similar issues. Drought-fueled fires. Port Alberni on Vancouver Island declared a state of emergency, cut power to thousands.
So it raises that question. Are we, collectively, really prepared for these mounting climate risks, financially, humanitarian-wise?
It seems like maybe not enough. And you see the human side on social media, right? Hashtag climate crisis, hashtag pray for Greece trending. People are upset, pointing fingers at governments for underinvesting.
Yeah, I saw some of that. And in Canada, people sharing drone footage, asking for more resources.
And this ties directly into potential supply shocks. Think agriculture, global wheat prices may be spiking again. It connects climate to food security, directly impacting, well, everyone.
Okay, moving from environmental to human-driven disruptions. The report details major labor unrest in Canada, too. Air and postal services hit hard.
Yeah, Air Canada preemptively canceling flights because flight attendants gave a 72-hour strike notice. Then the airline served a lockout notice. It escalated quickly.
And at the same time, postal workers.
Still maintaining an overtime ban, they rejected Canada Post's latest offer after, over a year of negotiations?
Wow. So what's the core issue driving these disputes?
It really seems to circle back to wage stagnation, complaints about unpaid labor, all against this backdrop of broader inflationary pressures we've been seeing.
For Air Canada specifically, the demands were higher wages, ending unpaid work, and accusations the airline wasn't bargaining in good faith.
That's what the union side was saying. And the financial hit could be significant for Air Canada refunds, lost revenue, plus the reputational damage.
And the postal delays affect everyone, slowing down mail, parcels, impacting productivity across the board.
For sure. You saw the immediate impact on X, formerly Twitter. People posting pictures of canceled flights, vacation ruined, that kind of thing, using hashtag pay your staff.
Though I guess opinions were split. Some supporting workers, others frustrated by the timing.
Yeah, definitely mixed reactions online. But what's really striking again is that disconnect. All this domestic turmoil, yet North American stock markets. rallied.
Before we continue, a quick note. This podcast comes from NextSight, a dedicated global intelligence company behind the open-source OSINT platform SiteConnect, powering these insights and making them customizable to your interests. Check out www.next-site.com.
That's right. And they also attach those reliability and confidence flags to every report, giving you transparency on how much trust and corroboration lies behind each story. You can contact them if you need any kind of global investigation or information, too.
Okay, so back to that market rally. Despite the disruptions, how does the report explain that?
Well, the suggestion is that investors were basically looking past these short-term issues. Their focus was elsewhere.
On monetary policy. The Fed.
Exactly. Hopes for Federal Reserve rate cuts seem to be the main driver. The market's fully pricing in a 25 basis point cut in September. Some are even thinking maybe 50 points.
Based on what? Softer inflation data.
Softer inflation, yeah. And some encouraging statements from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent apparently gave traders confidence.
So the market's trading on expectation, not necessarily the immediate reality of strikes and fires.
Precisely. It highlights this gap between Wall Street sentiment and Main Street or even global instability. And that gap carries risk, right? If the Fed doesn't cut or if some geopolitical shock hits harder.
That rally could reverse sharply, which is a good transition to the next section. Geopolitical crossroads. The Middle East situation, particularly Gaza, remains critical.
Very critical. The report details heavy Israeli bombardment in Gaza City on the 13th. At least 123 people killed in just 24 hours, tragically.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments about Palestinians potentially leaving the enclave. That's a significant statement. The reported death toll since the war started is staggering, nearly 61,000, according to the Gaza Health Ministry.
It's almost incomprehensible. And adding to the tragedy is the humanitarian crisis. Aid is just not getting through effectively. Hundreds of trucks stalled at Rafah.
Why? What are the bottlenecks?
The report cites strict Israeli inspection processes, limited border hours. I mean, there's an example of a WHO shipment of simple topical medicines being blocked for packaging irregularities.
Wow, just basic medical supplies. The human cost of these political and logistical hurdles is immense.
Undeniable. And you see it reflected online. Hashtags ceasefire now dominating social media in multiple languages. Images of the destruction are everywhere, alongside heavy criticism of both Hamas and Israeli actions.
And the worry is always regional spillover, isn't it?
Yeah.
Disrupting oil shipments through Suez, for instance.
That's always a background risk. No major energy price spike was noted on the 13th specifically, but continued conflict could tighten supply. That might explain why some energy stocks held up well in the U.S. markets.
Interesting. Elsewhere in the region, Lebanon seems to be navigating some tricky diplomacy.
Yeah, Lebanese President Anoun told an Iranian envoy, Ali Larijani, that all weapons in Lebanon need to be under state control. That's a clear signal towards disarming militias like Hezbollah.
At a time when Iran is trying to boost its influence there and in Syria, maintain that land corridor.
Exactly. So it's a delicate balancing act for Lebanon. If they manage to disarm militias, it could unlock international aid, maybe lower the cost of borrowing by reducing insurance premiums on their bonds.
But Iran might not have the resources to fully back Hezbollah anyway, given its own constraints.
That's a factor, too. Lebanese reactions were mixed, you know. Some welcomed Aoun's statement cautiously, while pro-Hezbollah voices accused him of caving to foreign pressure. It's complex.
As we go along, remember, NextSight's SiteConnect is continuously refining these intelligence reports to match your needs, keeping you informed and empowered.
Now, shifting focus to Ukraine, the report mentions Donald Trump's diplomatic moves ahead of a planned meeting with Putin.
Right, consulting European leaders and President Zelensky first.
Apparently so. He reportedly warned Putin of severe consequences for refusing a ceasefire, but the Europeans were quick to stress Ukraine's sovereignty must be respected in any talks.
How's that playing out in terms of public opinion, or hearsay, as the report might call it?
Well, skepticism in Europe about the Trump-Putin summit, some urging leaders to hold firm on sovereignty, others worried about potential concessions being made. Ukrainians abroad expressed thanks for European support for Kyiv's involvement.
Got it. And then, briefly, in the Pacific, growing competition.
Seems so. Foreign ministers met in Suva, setting the stage for their leaders' meeting, talking about this 2050 strategy. And Fiji's military commander made a first official visit to Tonga.
Signaling closer defense ties. Joint training, maybe procurement down the line.
That's the likely implication, yeah. Strengthening regional partnerships in response to that broader geopolitical competition.
Okay, let's move to segment 3. Economic shifts and tech frontiers. We touched on the market rally already.
Yeah, the S&P 500 and NASDAQ hitting new records on the 13th, driven by those Fed rate cut hopes we discussed.
That disconnect really is the story there. The potential for a sharp correction if expectations aren't met or if reality bites harder.
For sure. It's like the market is running on fumes of optimism right now. We also saw resilience elsewhere, though, like in Brazil.
Ah, yes. President Lula's government stepping in with a big credit lifeline for exporters who were hit by those U.S. tariffs.
BRL 30 billion, about US $5.5 billion. Business owners there apparently called it vital to keep factories running. Shows governments actively trying to shield their industries.
Shifting to Asia and tech. Big ambitions there, right? The Open Compute Project Summit.
Absolutely. Highlighting Asia-Pacific's growing slice of the global AI data center pie. The region now has 30% of OCP corporate members, 40% of certified data centers.
And Taiwan leading the charge in AI chips. The projected hardware spending is massive, US $190 billion by 2028, with over a third expected from Asia.
Huge numbers. But there's a shadow over this rapid growth. The report mentions a concerning development. Chinese naval strategists.
What about them?
Proposing ways to disable or spoof the U.S. integrated undersea surveillance system. The goal seems to be reducing American anti-submarine capabilities.
That sounds significant. Affecting defense budgets, the security of undersea cables, which are vital for global communication.
Potentially, yes. It's a reminder of the military dimension underpinning some of this tech race. Chinese social media showed some nationalist support for PLA strategies, though others warned that targeting cables could risk escalating conflict.
And still in tech, South Korea's stablecoin plans are hitting roadblocks.
Yeah, they want to launch a stablecoin pegged to the won, but they're running into regulatory issues because of existing onshore currency controls.
So it limits its use. CoinDesk apparently suggested they might end up being little more than glorified gift cards.
Pretty much. Limited utility outside South Korea itself. It shows the friction between crypto innovation and traditional financial regulations. Tech forums are buzzing, debating if it's even feasible.
So it all loops back, tech investment booming, but increasingly tangled with geopolitical risk. AI infrastructure surge is great, but threats to undersea networks or U.S.-China tensions could disrupt the very supply chains needed for those data centers.
Exactly. Investors need to think about hedging that kind of risk, especially around sensitive areas like Taiwan and cross-strait production.
Okay, final segment. Human rights, development, and societal impact. What stands out here? Peru's amnesty law seems controversial.
Highly controversial. Congress passed a law shielding military and police from prosecution for human rights abuses during the 1982 conflict against the Shining Path.
Despite opposition from major human rights groups.
Yeah, groups like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International argue it violates international law and protects people accused of serious crimes like extrajudicial killings and torture. It passed with a large majority, though.
So what's the public reaction?
Online, you saw immediate condemnation using hashtags like #NoToImpunity. But supporters argued it was a necessary step for national reconciliation. It raises that difficult question of balancing accountability for past traumas with stability.
And there could be international fallout. Sanctions, aid cuts.
That's a definite risk, which could add to Peru's existing fiscal pressures. Elsewhere in Latin America, Colombia's President Petro took a strong stance
Against U.S. military threats in the region.
Right. Following Trump authorizing potential military force against terrorist groups, Petro convened regional foreign ministers. He stated any attack on Venezuela would be seen as an attack on Colombia, vowing regional solidarity, a real push for diplomacy over force.
Okay, shifting gears to development efforts, the Africa Water Investment Summit.
Held in Cape Town, aiming to mobilize US $30 billion annually to close Africa's water investment gap. The goal is universal safe water access by 2030, using public-private partnerships.
Huge potential impact there. Jobs, health, productivity.
Massive. Attendees were apparently very positive online, using #WaterForAll, really pushing for that universal access goal.
And finally, in the Pacific, a call for climate justice.
Yes. Veteran activist Drew Havea urged Pacific nations to take a unified stance on climate loss and damage, especially after a recent International Court of Justice ruling.
Pushing for developed nations to compensate for climate harm.
That's the core idea. Calling for the upcoming Forum Leaders meeting to adopt a strong Pacific stand and ensure civil society voices are heard. Activists amplified this online, urging leaders to stand up for loss and damage.
So, that brings us to the end of today's intelligence briefing. Your Thursday, August 14th, 2025 report based on yesterday's events. We've covered a lot from labor disputes and wildfires to geopolitical maneuvering and that strange market rally.
It's quite a complex picture, isn't it? But what really stands out, I think, is how interconnected everything is. Fires impacting commodities, diplomacy affecting tech supply chains.
Domestic policies having global ripples. You really have to see the connections to make sense of it all.
And this intelligence isn't just descriptive, it's meant to be actionable. The report itself includes recommended actions for leaders, contingency planning for supply chains, hedging climate risk, improving stakeholder communication on difficult issues like human rights.
It shows how this kind of analysis is designed to help navigate this complexity in the real world. So here's a final thought for you to consider as you reflect on all this. In a world where financial markets often seem so detached from these pressing geopolitical and climate realities, how can we as individuals, as societies, better align our long-term planning with these unavoidable global pressures?
That's the big question, isn't it? What steps can each of us take to prepare and adapt?
Something to think about. We hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, more informed perspective on our fast-changing world. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and Spotify and like, share, or comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Keep asking those big questions.
This is it for today. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.